people and everyone animating out there. Welcome to my episode about working in Moho and animation. We've taken a break from the Moho tutorial manual, and I wanted to touch on a topic that I found quite interesting and valuable because I noticed that the debate is Moho is actually not good for traditional animation, and I think it is limited, but there is some really cool things you can achieve with the freehand Moho tool, the freehand tool, and you can still do traditional animation. So I took it upon myself and did six animations, I guess six doodles, where I am animating using freehand tools, and all this is done in freehand. All these animations are done in freehand. I'm gonna show you how I achieve them for some, and we're just gonna run through which ones you may find interesting and what things you can do. So we've got a walk cycle, a head turn, a bouncing ball, the traditional bouncing ball, and a few explosions, and maybe dust particles following a motorbike or a car wheel, and so forth. And all this I used for. Okay, let's go one by one. So let's start with the explosion. This is a quick rundown of the explosion. I have my frame by frame layer, which is found when you say you go into this new layer tab, and then you click on frame by frame, and then you can have your layer. And then if you double click on it, you can go to switch layer, and then I switch on both interpolate sublayers and frame by frame, and that's okay. So each frame by frame I have my drawings using the freehand tool. So the freehand tool has some really interesting features. So let's say we create a new frame by frame layer, and then we click here, and then this is frame 1. So in frame 1, I'm just going to show you how the various options we've got. Let's say auto stroke, and for now auto stroke, so I can show you the strokes, and then we close that, the autofill, close that, and these are the various. Okay, so we've got this stroke. You can use pen pressure, no pen pressure. I prefer to use pen pressure because without it, I guess you can also have a solid line without pen pressure, so maybe you may want that. And I have tapered start, tapered end. I'm sure you can adjust that to whichever one you like. Let's say 80, and then 80 at the end, so it's one side at the end. So this is basically the same as you drawing frame by frame on a paper with a pencil or a pen, or using other softwares like Toon Boom and TV Paint. I would assume you have a pen tool. Of course it has limitations, but with the auto stroke, merge strokes, you can join strokes together. Auto close, you can easily close up. And we reset that, and maybe one is the smoothing. This is the highest, and for that one it has a solid line. And I think this would be useful when actually you have, maybe you've sketched out your rough passing phase, your rough phase, so you can use it as a stencil. You can have your stencil underneath. You can have your stencil underneath, and then you just follow the stencil. Let's say human or a character with small feet and so forth. And you can always adjust them as you go along in your timeline. I feel that works well, And then let's say smoothing off, completely off, and we go. So it has no smoothing. It's just as it is. So I think if you take more care to it, if you take more care, taper start, taper end, take more care to the drawing. Let's say you have an outline that you've already done, maybe you've got a rough pass. Again, you can then focus and do it. You can just trace along and have some really cool effects with it, I think. And then also you go to the next layer, you can switch on onion skin and you can draw as you wish the following. Of course, it has these limitations where sometimes when you draw, it doesn't actually register, and I'm sure that is just smoothing you can fix, and it's a small price to pay. And if you go into the styles and brushes, this is when you can get really cool textures. And I've noticed that some people create brush textures, so I'm sure you can get pencil textures, paintbrush textures that will be useful. So let's say we use this one, that changes the texture. And then if you adjust the size of this, the width, maybe 10, you can have that. So for example, let's say you want to create some textures. Let's say we have a circle vector layer, and we create our circle. This will be our ball. Let's say I have none there. I'll make a little red ball. Boom. There's our little ball. And then we have a new layer. We could say frame by frame. Group these two together. And then create masking layer, hide all, apply. And this is the mask layer, the circle, and this is where we'll be drawing our textures from. So let's say you have your brush, we pick a texture from a frame by frame. Let's say we have this texture. Okay, so we go here, okay, go here, and we want to create a texture on our bouncing ball. So as the ball moves, we may have a texture. Let's say we want to increase that. We can even increase that to 20. And we can have our texture there, and those can be interesting features if you want to use them in your ball. And then let's say you want to move the ball as it's moving. You can then rig the ball by itself and have it moving with your frame adjustments, and I think that's pretty cool. So those are ways you can use the frame by frame tool, and that's basically what I did for the next explosion. We go back and we delete that. That's what I did for the next big explosion, where you can see different layers and adjustments. In this one, I have the main layer, which is the big one. You can see it over here in this switch layer box. I have that, and then the next layer I have the white coatings and everything, and they also have a texture, so you can also change opacity and have your adjustments as you're drawing along. So basically you can still draw. It has its limitations, but I think you can do traditional animation if you take care, take your time and study it. This is all pretty much rushed work. I didn't spend too much time on each and every one. And here you can see the mask working again. If I can zoom into there, you can see the mask. Oh, I can't seem to zoom in. Okay. finally got it. Okay, so let's say we have it here. This is like tire tracks. You can have your wheel turning here, your car, and your tire tracks. And also you can have your shade at the bottom. If you take more care to really create it, you can have really cool effects to it. We add maybe another one there, you know, and so forth. It's all masked, you know, it will appear in the mask, and you can have really cool effects. You can adjust the speed of it also, and option, and you can stretch it along and it will change the speed, how it's changing. You can adjust that. And base also, the mask is where everything is at the base, at the top. And then for the head turn, I also did the same. I tried to explore, and also this is like the first time I'm doing these adjustments, so it was really freestyle, straight ahead. I didn't really plan it. I was just exploring how far I could take it. So for the head, it's slightly different. I started off with point animation for some areas, using also the frame by frame, I feel, because you animate, you're having a keyframe in every frame. And I adjusted how I want the move. So for the shades, I'm moving using point animation, so there's no rigging involved, it's just point animation. And then for the outlines, I was drawing with the texture and stroke, and I was drawing over them, and I wasn't really taking care using onion skins to have it more accurate, but it actually creates a really cool effect, I think, for music videos, which will be really cool to have. And for the lips, I also used point animation, and then on top I did the outline. And for the nose, I also created a nose and used point animation for that as well. The ears, I used point animation, and as they in the group, I have animate layer order. I've enabled that. That allows me to move the ears up and down on each side. And then that's for the nose, left ears. And then for the hair, it's all frame by frame. As you can see, the keyframes, I was drawing each frame after the other. And I believe you can also you can draw on one frame and then just move them across each and every time. You can move, maybe you have your hair locks or strands, you can move them along as you go, adjust to the next frame, to the next frame, to the next frame, and you don't actually have to do frame by frame, but you can draw it. Again, I wasn't really taking care using the onion skin, I was just drawing over and over. But if you really take care to be accurate, I'm sure you can have a really accurate head turn with frame by frame. In your scene, you can set up your scene and have your movements. If you have like a first drawn up phase and coloring, you won't have to color. And in there, you can also create, I believe you can mask it and create textures in there as you go along, shadows, highlights, etc. And for the other part of the hair, I also did the same. This is on a different layer for the other side of the hair, and it moves away to the back. And then the head, I had it also, nothing's rigged, no bones, but all just point animation. And so I feel you could combine all these into using a rig and using traditional animation and actually drawing in Moho, and you can still have the same effects that Toon Boom has, and for a whole lot less, so it's beneficial. I think Moho, you can animate using traditional styles, especially with the bouncing ball. You can see the effects, I was drawing them in. The ball itself is done by point animation, but still using keyframes on frames, and it moves around in the box. And then the effects, I was drawing them on. I drew them on in frame by frame. I absolutely drew them on using this one to add frame, to remove a frame, duplicate a frame, you know, and frame intervals. You can adjust that as you wish. And that's really how I have my bouncing ball. Not much to say there. And walk cycle is the same thing. For my walk cycle, I have the shorts in the frame where I was drawing over and over. And if I was to actually take more care to really draw it out, I can really have, let's say we have autofill, auto close, and we don't have auto stroke because we'll do the outline on top, and really draw a nice short, you know. And you can then adjust it as you wish in there, add more points if needed, and you can really adjust it. So that's one way to do it. And also the other way is to carry the same, draw it on frame 1 without the timeline, and then just move it along like how I did the legs. You can just have another layer of just the pants and move with point animation, which works. And frame by frame combined, you can then add those. For creases, maybe you can add for creases. I think that will be useful when moving along. Add a crease, and those are little small bits that could be useful when making your animation look really super cool. So that's it on frame by frame, and I hope you like it. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below and I'll be sure to answer them. And remember to subscribe to the channel and follow my socials, and we'll see you on the next video. And hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, hope I could share something for you. And this is also me just teaching myself and expanding my animation, because this was the first time I actually attempted frame by frame. Because when we're working Moho, we're always told, Moho is a vector tool, don't really use frame by frame. But the results can be really good. And to think this is my first time to actually really attempt, and I think you can use traditional animations to have effects like explosions, puffs of smoke, dust particles, walking, head turns, bouncing balls, goo effects, transitions, even when making a transition, because I see the trend in Instagram videos, there's these transitions where you change the stretches, it stretches, the character stretches, and then I believe you can then add these transitions using frame by frame animations and the drawing tool. So really it's just one tool, and I'm sure you can find online people with plugins where they have brush textures and different styles, and it'll be really cool. And so please share your own animations with me. I would like to see them using frame by frame, and hope to see you on the next one. Ciao.